Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Morning, Mr. Myers, or good afternoon, Mr. Myers. Can you explain to me, kind of a more granular level of internal testing? You said that there was a human element involved in this. I'm curious how, because you guys use the OODA loop method inside your company, correct? Big fan of it, by the way. So great job. I'm just curious if we're doing internal testing in a way that most certainly would prevent this from happening, and the human element is involved, and it's not artificial intelligence that's pushing out this information. Can you walk me through that, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Congressman, for the question. The process for testing the content updates was reliant on validators.
How many? How many?
I'll have to get back to you on the exact number, but we tested each of the channels, so each of the different rules that were inside that content file were tested individually, and those validators ensured that the rules conformed and were compliant with the very structure that CrowdStrike had built for those content updates, meaning...
They test individually. Is there something to be said about not testing them collectively? It seems like a very large miss. You guys touch a lot of things. I mean, you touch a lot of infrastructure in the United States, something that we count on you for, which you've been doing a great job, right? With this one, you mentioned North Korea, China, and Iran. Our outside actors are trying to get us every day. We shot ourselves in the foot on the inside of the house. So I'm curious, if we're testing these things individually, is there a point at which we test them collectively before we push it out?
Yeah, thank you, sir. That's where we are now. So the new methodology is to test all of the content updates internally before they're released to the early adopters.
So that's where the fault was. Internal, we were testing the coding individually instead of collectively, and one of them was off.
The testing process looked at each configuration and made sure that it conformed with the standard. It is now being tested internally before it's rolled out to customers. And then the customers have control over what systems get those updates.
Yes, sir. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how this thing got launched with it not being absolute.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. The rules, the validator itself, was in place for over a decade, and we've released 10 to 12 of these updates every single day since we started using the configuration updates. That was tested against the standard to make sure that the configuration conformed with the standard that CrowdStrike had written for those configuration updates.
This happened to test positive, and we sent it out. I think I'm trying to find out, did it test positive and we launched it, or did it fail and we launched it accidentally?
I see. Thank you. Yes, it tested as clean or good, and that's why it was allowed to roll out.
So as we unpack this, where exactly did it fail? This may be a complicated question to answer in a minute and 18 seconds.
I'll give it a try.
All right.
So the content file triggered an issue within the kernel sensor, so that when the sensor processed the configuration, it is almost like if you think about a chessboard trying to move a chess piece to someplace where there's no square. That's effectively what happened inside the sensor. So when it tried to process the rule, it was not able to do what the rule was asking it to do, which triggered the issue within the sensor.
Should we have known that? Should CrowdStrike would know that about the kernel, correct? Or is this something that we weren't aware of?
This was a kind of a perfect storm of issues that resulted in the sensor failure.
Okay. I'm going to need about 20 more seconds, Mr. Chairman, to go with that. So knowing what we know now, what is the response mechanism in place? Worst case scenario, this happens again for all the users.
Thank you. So this would trigger, this would be detected within CrowdStrike before it ever made it to the
Because
early
now
adopters.
now we're doing as it's a code.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.